Attention. You are now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, yes, there's more. Yes, there's more. You get the personal initiative to go get an energy that moves me, you, and everyone else out there to go make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one bundle, one method, one mindset, one philosophy, one book, one show, one masterclass, and we call it Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. Today's topic is why you need a team of A players. Not 8. The number A is in the letter, the capital letter A. I'm putting that in quotations. Quote A, close quote, A players, as opposed to B, C, D, E, and F players. You need A players on your team. Now, I talked in masterclass number 870 about the characteristics of level 10 individuals. If you did not listen to that, I really suggest you do. Any of you, especially those of you who are in leadership positions or plan on being in a leadership position, you need to listen to that masterclass again, 870. And let me give you a hint. Every one of you is in a leadership position. You're leading your own life, whether you're leading yourself to ruin or you're leading yourself to success. You are in a leadership position. Today, we're talking about why you need to fill your team with A players. And if you are a prospective team member, meaning maybe you're not the person who's choosing a team, but you're a person who wants to be chosen for a team, you need to listen to this too, because you're going to learn why you need to be an A player in order to get chosen, or in order to have options when it comes to choosing. If you would rather, let me ask you, would you rather be a person who is hoping to get chosen, or would you rather be a person who has so many people wanting you that you get to choose between them? Instead of them choosing you, you get to choose which team you join. I think most of you will probably be in the second group. You'd rather be in the second group where you get to choose the team that you join. I want to explain to you that if you're not an A player, you'll never have this option. But today is not even your lucky day. It's just your smart day, because you didn't land on this. You didn't land in this masterclass by luck. Or you chose to be here. You could have been in a lot of places. You chose to be here. So I'm not even going to say it's your lucky day. This is just you're just reaping the benefits of your intelligence by listening to this right now. The challenge of doing this, however, is that A players, wherever they are, whomever they are fewer and further in between, fewer in number, and thus they are harder to find. So A players, being who they are, they have options. So those of you who are prospects to join any type of team or group, if you're an A player, you're an A-level performer, you're an A-level results deliverer, you will have options, because you're going to have many suitors. If you're an A player type of person, you're going to have many people who want to be your friend. If you're in an A player type of business, you're going to have many people wanting to do business with you. If you're an A player, male or female, you're going to have many suitors of people who want to be in a relationship with you. Why? Because you're an A player individual, and people can see when somebody's an A player. A players have suitors. Okay? A players get to choose amongst their suitors. So if you want to know if you're an A player or not right now in life, all you got to do is look at the last time you were available, whether that be in business, whether that be as a friend, a person to be connected with, whether it be for a relationship. When was the last time you were available, and how many options were available to you at that time? How many people were vying for your services or companionship or your friendship or your business? How many people were trying to get to you the last time you were available? If you're available right now, how many people are trying to reach you? That tells you whether you're being an A player or not right now in that particular area of your life. If you find that you are not being an A player, you don't have many suitors, and it's hard for you to even get chosen by one person, let me tell you something else. All right, you're in a good place. You're in a good place by listening to me right now, because at least you are aware of the issue and you're doing something about the issue. Now, there are a bunch of people who are not A players who ain't doing nothing about it because they're completely unaware. They're completely ignorant to the fact that they're not A players. You're not in that group. All right, those people, they're the losers. All right, those are the people who are going to be holding up the bottom of the pyramid. All right, you're not going to be one of them. So you're already in a better place as you're taking some action and doing something about the fact that maybe you're not an A player in particular areas of life right now, but we're going to fix all that. All right, so you're in good hands. The challenge of doing this, again, finding A players for your team, is that there are not so many A players out there, and A players have choices. So you got to sweeten the deal to get an A player to join your team, because why should they join you when they could join Tom, Dick, and Harry, all these other people out there? A players don't always need you. Team chooser, HR person, manager, boss, owner, coach. A players don't need you because they could join a different team. They could join a different company. They don't need to join yours. And this is why those of you who are in, again, leadership and people choosing positions, this is why so many mediocre people, B players, C players, D players, X, Y, and Z players, this is why those mediocre individuals get opportunities. Today, I went to Publix, which is a local grocery store, well, a South Florida grocery store chain, and I ordered a sandwich. Now, I've ordered a sandwich from Whole Foods at their little, what do they call it? I don't even know what the little area where they make the sandwiches. You order the food and they make it right there in front of you and this and that. When I go to Whole Foods and order a sandwich, it takes about 3 to 4 minutes from the time that I start speaking to the person to the time I walk away with my sandwich. When I went to Publix today, it took about 10 minutes. And it wasn't because they were lacking any ingredients or they were missing anything or that the line was long. It's just because they moved so damn slow. The culture of the people who work there, which is set by the person on top, the leader, the manager, led to them being like that. They didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing that I could have complained about. There's nothing I could have pointed out. They just move slow. They take their time. They weren't trying to be rude. That was just the culture. It's just the acceptable way of doing things there. And that starts at the top. These mediocre players who may be A players if they were pushed to be A players were being mediocre players simply because that's the culture. So today, leaders, you need to check your group. And if you see that you have a whole lot of mediocrity in your group, that's because you have allowed that culture to set in, which means you are the mediocre one. It's not them, it's you. The reason why so many mediocre people end up with opportunities is because a lot of leaders don't want to do the hard work required to find A-level players for their team. They don't want to find level 10 people. And they don't want to make their environment conducive to a level 10 individual, because a level 10 person will look at an environment and know very quickly whether there are other level 10s who are going to be there or not. Because guess what? People like to hang with their own kind. People like to hang with people who are like them. We like to be around people who are on the same wavelength as us. So when you're around other people if you're a person who doesn't smoke and you walk into a room full of people who all smoke weed and cigarettes, you probably aren't going to want to stay there. You're going to feel uncomfortable immediately because you're not on the same wavelength as those individuals. You want to go somewhere else. You probably can smell the smoke. You probably get a contact high as soon as you walk into the room. You're not on their wavelength. A mediocre person walks into a room full of level 10 people, they're going to feel uncomfortable because they're going to immediately realize, they're going to do the calculations in their mind in a split second and realize, damn, I'm going to have to work a whole lot harder at this in here. I'm going to be held accountable a whole lot more here. Maybe I shouldn't be here because I don't want to do that. I can't get away with mediocrity here. This ain't going to work. And by the same token, a level 10 person walks into a room full of mediocre individuals and says, these motherfuckers ain't on my level. I'm not working here. No way. I'm not staying on this team. Or they can say, I'm going to raise the level of everybody on this team and kick everybody's ass in here until we get to the right level, or else. I heard Kobe Bryant say that once. One of his final years, maybe not, wasn't that late in his career, but one year on the LA Lakers, they had started the season off kind of slow. They were losing more games than they expected to lose. And after one of their losses, one of the reporters came up to Kobe Bryant in the locker room and said, hey, you guys aren't doing so well so far, Kobe. Do you think you all will figure this out? And Kobe Bryant said, of course we're going to figure it out, because if we don't, I'm going to kick everybody's ass in his locker room. And he wasn't joking. Now, I don't think he meant like physically beating people up, but what he meant was, I'm going to raise everybody's level here and I'm going to be the one who sets the tone. You as the leader, when you bring a level 10 person into a room full of mediocrity, they will either decide they're going to kick everybody's ass and raise the level, or they're going to turn right back around and walk out and go find some level 10 people so they don't have to do all that work of pulling everyone up. So you as a leader, you need to check your team. And if you see a lot of mediocrity there, again, it starts at the top. It doesn't start with them. It starts with you. Mediocre people get opportunities not because they're the best option, just because there are so many of them. And there are so many mediocre leaders who don't want to do the work of making a level 10 environment. So today, I'm going to make the case for why you as the leader, as the boss, the coach, the trainer, the supervisor, why you need to do the extra work. And yes, there will be extra work required to fill your team with A-level individuals, even at the extra expenses of time, money, and energy. I'm going to repeat that. We haven't even gotten to our points yet. You as the leader, and when I say leader, I'm talking to anyone who has the power to choose the individuals who report to you. Whether you're a coach and you got a staff, or you have players. A coach, you get to choose your players for the most part, right? If you're a boss and you get to choose the people who work for you. If you're a manager and you get to hire and fire people. If you're whatever it is you do and you get to choose the people who are around you, you're an entrepreneur, you get to choose your employees. I want to tell you that you need to fill your team with A-level individuals, even if it costs you more time to find them, more money to pay them, and more energy to go looking for them. You need to do it anyway. And today I'm going to make the case for why. And even though I'm speaking directly to the choosers today, those of you who are looking to be chosen, all you got to do is read between the lines of everything I'm going to say here. I think I'm pretty good at explaining my points. Understand, I'm going to be explaining the type of person that you need to be. So if you're not that type of person right now, measure yourself against everything I'm going to say and check yourself. If you're not that type of person, again, refer yourself back to 870 and make sure you're a level 10 individual. Because if you're not, listen, the people that I'm talking to today ain't going to be looking for your ass. Point number one. Topic, once again, is why you need to fill your team with A-level players. A-level individuals are fast learners. This is the first reason why you need them. In masterclass number 601, I explained to you that slow learners get left to die. In elementary school, middle school, and high school, if a slow learner raises their hand in class and tells the teacher that they don't understand the concept that has been taught, the teacher will stop, pause the lesson, rewind, and teach it again until all the slow learners have caught up. In real life, slow learners don't get that luxury. You just leave your ass there, and if you die, you die. If he dies, he dies. That's how it goes. In life, you as the leader, you do not have time to teach everybody everything. Even though in masterclass number 1100 and 1101, where I talked about delegation and codification, I explained to you how to do that for the people who are worthy of your time, but everybody ain't worthy of your time. All right, sometimes in life, especially when you're a leader, you're going to need to fill your team with people who just, quote, get it, close quote. People who just get it. They understand what you're doing without you having to sit there for 3 hours and explain to them every single detail of what's going on. They just understand it. You need people who just get it. All right, you can't teach everything to everybody. All right? You ain't got the time for all that. Ain't nobody got time for that. You need people who just get it without you having to explain everything in excruciating detail. In other words, you need fast learning individuals or people who already know it before they showed up. They don't have to learn anything. They know more than you. These people, these A-level individuals, they will help you go faster and they will help you go further because they think how you think. I mean, imagine how great your team would be if you had 6 people working with you, reporting directly to you, who all thought the way that you think, thought the way that you think, who all moved as quickly as you move, who all understood things as quickly as you understood them, who all grasped new concepts as easily and as seamlessly and could apply them as fast as you can grasp new concepts and implement them. Imagine if you had people working with you who could do that. Imagine if you had one person who was like that on your team. How much more would you get done? How much faster would you be moving if you didn't have to do it all yourself? If you didn't have to hold everybody by the hand? How much more would you get done? How much better would you be right now? These are the A players, and I'm going to tell you that they do exist. If you had a whole team of people who thought like you, how much would you get done every day? Understand that A players, these are the type of people who they don't have to be from where you're from or have the same background as you. And A player is the type of person whose mind is open enough but also sharp enough that they can understand in a very short period of time exactly what you're thinking, what you want to get done, and how to get it done. And they can see things that you don't even have to tell them. You don't have to point it out to them. They see things without you saying anything. They will even see things that you never even noticed. They'll see things before you see them and get them done, and you don't even have to tell them to get them done. Any of you watches football, for example, basketball as well. We'll use football as an example. I've heard quarterbacks talk about this, that when they get into a certain level of harmony, they get so in sync with one of their wide receivers that sometimes, when a football quarterback approaches the line of scrimmage and they're about to snap the ball, before the ball gets snapped and everybody's moving around and the quarterback's reading the defense and trying to figure out what the defense is going to do, they notice that there's an opportunity there for one of their wide receivers. And if they have a certain level of, if they're so in sync with one of those wide receivers, they have a certain level of connection with that receiver. I've heard quarterbacks say, I heard Peyton Manning say this, I heard Steve Young say this about dealing with Jerry Rice, and Peyton Manning talk about with Marvin Harrison. They get in such sync that the quarterback can just make eye contact with the receiver. And they both know, okay, don't do the thing that I called in the huddle, do this other thing. They both know it without saying a single word. It's like they have ESP, right? And then they go and do that thing and they both connect without having to say a single thing. This is what happens when you put 2 A players on the same team. When 2 A players are working together, they don't have to say anything. They just go right into doing their thing. Nobody has to explain anything to the other person. They both know what to do. They both know what adjustments to make, and it just happens. Again, this happens in basketball, it happens in football, it happens in business, it happens in everything. When two people can just make eye contact and they both know what the other one is saying, they both know what changes, what adjustments to make, and they go make those adjustments and things just start happening. Point number 2. Today's topic is why you need to fill your team with A-level players. Second reason why you need A players on your team is because A players take ownership and they get things done. Again, how much better would your team perform if you had a whole team of people who took ownership of everything they touched and they made sure that everything that they started got done? Now, wouldn't that help you a lot? Anything that A player touches, they take responsibility for and they see it through to its completion. A players treat their jobs as if they own the whole company. Let me repeat that one. This is a very important point. This is the point that separates a mediocre staff from a fantastic staff. A players treat a job as if they own the whole company. Even when they own 0%, they treat it as if they own the whole thing. And not in a bad way, like they boss people around or don't do any work, but in a way such as they take ownership of every single thing that they touch. Why? Because that's the type of person that they are. That's what an A-level person does. The more of these types you have on your team, the better your business will run. And when I say the more, I'm talking about percentage-wise. So if you got 10 people on your team, having 9 of these people is better than having 5 of them. If you got 2 people on your team, having 1 of them is better than having 0. The more A players you have, the more people you have who take complete ownership of everything that they touch, the better your business will run, the better your team will run, the more successful you will be. Let me tell you what you don't want also. While I'm telling you what you do want, here's what you don't want on any team. You don't want a team of renters. You don't want a team of people holding leases. You don't want a bunch of leasees on your team. These are people who are only there for whatever they can get out of it, whether that be a paycheck, whether they get to be part of a group, whether they get to post something on social, whether it's the money that they make or the status that they get. They're only there from 9 to 5. As soon as 5 o'clock hits, they immediately clock out and leave. There was a guy, I was listening to his podcast. He works for a company, and there's a bunch of people who work at this company, and this guy was saying on the show that whenever they hire somebody, well, before he even got to the hiring part, he was talking about how, technically the people who work here were open from, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every single day. So technically at 6 p.m., everybody is, quote, off, close quote, work, and everybody can go home. But the thing is, nobody ever leaves at 6 p.m. Everybody stays after 6 p.m. because we're having fun here. We're getting things done here. And when you have A-level players on your team, A-level players ain't watching the clock. A-level players know that they're off and maybe they got other things to do, but they still stay late and get more things done because that's the type of person that they are. And this guy went on to explain that whenever they have someone who doesn't last long at the company, one way that they always know who's not going to last long is if they look at what that person does at 6 o'clock. The person who doesn't only last a month or two at the company is the type of individual, as soon as that clock strikes 6 or strikes 5 or whatever time they get off, that person is immediately out the door. You don't see them anymore. They're gone. If you are running a team, if you have at least one other person working with you, ask yourself, is this the type of person who goes above and beyond, or is this a person who just does the bare minimum, who does exactly what is asked for them but nothing more? Those are mediocre people. Those are people who are B, C, D, all the way down to Z level players. You don't want too many of those on your team. Actually, you want 0. And if you have any, you need to get rid of them. You want the people who are not watching the clock, so to speak. Again, they are watching it, but they're not watching it. They do what needs to be done, and they get done every job that they start. They take ownership of the things that they do. You need people who are taking ownership. Even a mediocre person who's a renter, who's a leasee, they're just there, until it's time for them to leave, and then they're out as soon as that moment hits. Even if they're good, even when they're skilled, even when they have a lot of experience, the better they are, the more of a problem they become if you have them on your team. Because if you have a mediocre mindset on your team, the more skilled they are, the more influence they will have over everybody else. See, a mediocre mindset person who has no skill, nobody's going to be influenced by them because nobody's looking up to their ability. They're like, oh, this person's trash. Or who cares about them? They got a mediocre mindset and they're trash. Or they'll see themselves out. Or they'll fire themselves. But a mediocre mindset individual who has a lot of skill, they're going to influence everybody else. They become a cancer. Their energy is a cancer that spreads to the whole team. You got to catch them and get rid of them quick. You as a leader got to be proactive in getting rid of those people. Don't hope that they go away. Don't hope that they get better. Don't be a bitch and complain about them and do nothing. Be a leader and get rid of them, because they're going to destroy your company from the inside out like termites. Point number 3. Today's topic is why you need to fill your team with A-level players. A players bring skills to the job with them. Let me repeat and then I'll explain. A-level players bring skills to the job with them, meaning they had the skills before they got there. You don't have to teach them everything to do. They had some skills already, which means you need to spend less time explaining, less time training, less time looking over their shoulders. While, of course, you can delegate and codify your work to delegate it to other people. Of course, you can do that. I suggest you do that. I've done it. I still do it. It still takes time and energy to delegate and codify things for other people to understand and follow. What if you were dealing with some people who already had the skills that you needed and more? What if somebody already could do all the stuff that you need to teach somebody else to do? What if you had 2 people coming to work for you? One of them you had to teach everything from the ground up. They had a great attitude, but you had to teach them everything from the ground up. What if you had another person who also has a great attitude, but they already know how to do everything that you're talking about? All you got to do is tell them, I need you to take these pieces from right here and get them into this right here and make this program work and fix these bugs over here. They said, I got it. It'll be done by tomorrow. You don't even have to explain anything to them because they already know everything that you know and probably more than you know. Which one are you hiring? Which one would you rather have on your team? Now, again, the first person doesn't have much skill. They got a great attitude. Maybe you can find another use for that person. But personally, I'd rather take the person who has the skills already. They brought skills to the table. I want the person who can fill in the gaps of what I don't have. Let me tell you what an overseas basketball coach told me once, years ago. I asked him, I said, Coach, every year you have hundreds, probably thousands of American-born players who want to play for your basketball team. Is this true? The coach said, absolutely, that's true, Dre. I said, and a bunch of them, either individually or through their agents, are reaching out to you to pitch themselves as a potential player for your roster. Is that true? He said, yes, that's true. And I said, the problem is you can't sign all of those players. You could probably only sign 1 or 2 of those individuals. Is this true? He said, yes, that's true. I said, so, Coach, how do you decide which player to sign when you have so many of them? And listen, many of them are actually good. How do you decide which one is the player to pick for your team that year? And here's what the coach said. He said, Dre, we signed a player who solves the most problems. We signed a player who fills the most gaps in our team. In other words, not just the player with the good attitude. We're looking for the player who, of all the problems that this team has, all the things that we're not good at, we want the player who can make the most number of those problems go away. That's the person we're signing. And it's the same way that you need to look at the players that you add to your team. Who has the most skills that handles the most gaps, the most knowledge gaps, the most skill gaps, the most time gaps in your organization? Who fixes them? Who fixes the most in them? Who solves the most problems? Maybe is a person who's just a specialist. They're great at just one thing, but that one thing is such a huge thing that is great for you. In 1995, the Chicago Bulls had just lost in the playoffs upon Michael Jordan's brief return from basketball, which hadn't been a full season. They knew they needed some more pieces so they could retool and win the championship, and they decided to sign this guy named Dennis Rodman. If you follow basketball, you know what Dennis Rodman's reputation was as far as on the basketball court was that he was a great defender, he was a great rebounder. That's it. Dennis Rodman was not the best passer in the world. He was not a shooter. He didn't score many points at all. It'd be a snowy day in Miami if Dennis Rodman scored 10 points in the game. This guy didn't score points. He played defense and he rebounded the hell out of the ball. That's all Dennis Rodman did. He was also a very intelligent player. He fit into a team concept. He was okay with being coached and he would fall in line. That's what Dennis Rodman did. The main thing he did was he grabbed every rebound that came off that rim. That's the one thing Dennis Rodman did. But that plugged such a huge gap for the Chicago Bulls that they signed him. And they went on to win 3 straight championships. So sometimes it's a specialist who plugs a gap that is so important for you that it fixes everything for you. It's like if you're running a sales business online and you sign somebody who's an excellent marketer and an excellent salesperson and they're helping bring more revenue to the bottom line of your business, that'll probably solve every other problem you have, right? So sometimes it's a specialist and sometimes it's a person who can do so many other things, like this pro basketball coach told me. The player who solved so many problems. We don't have shooting, we don't have ball handling, and we don't have veteran leadership. So what if you brought in a veteran player who could shoot and handle the ball? Now he just solved 3 problems. He's an A player. You might end up signing that guy. A players bring skill to the table and they fit in immediately. They fit in seamlessly. You don't have to teach them everything about what you're doing. They can step in and immediately start contributing because that's what A players do. In 2008, the Los Angeles Lakers made a trade that has gone down in history as one of the greatest heists in NBA history. Was when they made this traded a couple draft picks and unknown people to the Memphis Grizzlies for this guy named Pau Gasol. Now, one of those draft picks that the Lakers traded eventually became a guy named Marc Gasol, who actually became very good. But at the time, nobody knew who Marc Gasol was. He wasn't even in the league yet. But Pau Gasol was an established, pretty good player. I wouldn't even say he was a star yet, but he was established as pretty good. And I remember the first game he was playing with the Los Angeles Lakers, he was running pick and rolls with Kobe Bryant, and Kobe was hitting them with no-look passes, and Pau was scoring points, and everything was just looking seamless. They were playing together, Pau Gasol and Kobe Bryant, as if they had been playing together for years, even though it was the first game they had ever played together. Pau Gasol was an A player. Kobe Bryant was an A player. So when you put 2 A players together, they could have just met 5 minutes ago. They're going to have chemistry that looks like they've been playing with each other for 5 years, dealing with each other for 5 years. Because that's what an A player does. An A player can fit in and immediately contribute because they get it. They just get it. They understand without you having to tell them everything. Pau Gasol showed up with his own set of skills. He brought skills to the table. And when he arrived off the plane in LA, he already had skills. He didn't need Kobe to teach him. Now, I'm sure Kobe showed him a few things later on down the line as they went on, but he already knew what he needed to do, Pau Gasol. And he just started doing it immediately. And Kobe saw that immediately, and I think Kobe was probably pretty happy after that first game with Pau Gasol. He said, damn it, now we got somebody who understands. I don't have to teach this guy nothing. He knows. And the Los Angeles Lakers went on to the NBA Finals for the next 3 seasons with Pau Gasol, 1, 2 out of 3. That's what happens when you put A players together. Point number 4. Today's topic is why you need to fill your team with A-level individuals. A players go the extra mile without being told or asked to go the extra mile. This connects to the ownership mentality that they have. The extra mile. That means doing more than you're asked to do, staying later, showing up earlier, doing things that you haven't been asked to do at all simply because you see they need to be done. This is what an A player does. A players know what needs to be done without being told to do it, and they just do it. They don't tell you about it beforehand. They don't ask for permission. They don't wait for somebody to point it out. They don't do anything. They just go straight to doing it and they get it done, and they let you know after they did it that they got it done because they knew it needed to be done. But here's the thing. With doing that extra stuff, they know, the A player knows that they're not going to get paid anything extra for doing it. They know that they may not even be recognized for doing it. They may not even get as much as a handshake for doing that extra thing, going that extra mile, doing that, quote, extra work. But, and this is the thing that a B and the C player would never do. The A player does it anyway. Why does the A player do extra work when there's no guarantee that they're going to get anything extra for doing the extra work? Why do they do that? That's because the A player is doing what an A player does. See, people who go the extra mile and do, quote, extra work, or do things that they weren't asked to do just because they see they need to be done. This is the type of person that they are. That's part of their makeup. It's part of their character as a person. It is not something that they do. It's who they are. That's why you never see a B or C or a D player on the extra mile. If you ever go on the extra mile, you ain't going to see any B players on the extra mile. You won't see any D or F or G or Q or S players on the extra mile because it's not who they are. It's not part of their makeup as human beings. A players go the extra mile because that's just who they are. In masterclass number 1178, the topic was first who, then what. When you find people with the right attitude, then you can figure out what you're going to have them do. If you fill your team with a bunch of people who have the right attitude, A-level individuals who are willing to go the extra mile, even if they don't have the skill, they will learn the skill. Why? Because they're willing to go the extra mile to learn it. See, mediocre people don't do that. Point number 5. Today's topic is why you need to fill your team with A-level players. A players make your job easier. Simple as that. When you have A-level people on your team, every time they're there, your job should be easier than when they're not there. Look at your team. Look at the people on your staff. Look at the managers who report to you. Look at the people who you are a supervisor of. Which one of those people makes your job easier and which ones make your job harder? A people make your job easy. When you have an A person on the schedule, you're relieved because you know your job is going to be easier that day just because they're in the room. And when you have a mediocre person on the team and you see that they're coming in, you know your job is going to be harder. You know you're going to have to do a little bit of extra work because they're showing up. And you already know who these people are. Do you not? B and C level players are the type of people who are extra work for a leader because you have to watch those mediocre individuals. You have to monitor them. You have to train them. You got to look over their shoulder. You got to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. And you got to correct all their mistakes. That's what happens when you're dealing with a mediocre person. So let me repeat that list. If you feel like you have to watch a person, you got to monitor them. You got to train them all the time. You got to correct all their mistakes. You got to make sure that they know that you're watching them so that they don't slack off. You're dealing with a mediocre individual. That's the type of person you need to get off of your team. You need to get rid of that person. A-level players, you don't have to do any of these things with them. A-level players are the type of people who take ownership of certain aspects of the job to the point that you don't even need to focus on that area anymore because you know it's going to be handled. You know it's going to be done right. You know that they're going to get the job done every single time without you having to double check everything that they do. That's an A-level player. A-level players always get things done over and over and over again to the point that they basically own that aspect of the job. They become linchpins in your work. Seth Godin wrote a book called Linchpin that talks about this exact concept. I suggest you go read it. A players move quickly. They get things done efficiently. They do things that you didn't even know needed to be done. They do things that you didn't even ask them to do. They do things that you didn't even know there was a need, but they just get it done, and they may never even tell you that they did it. That's what an A player does. Why? Because it's just who they are as a person. They don't need to be taught all the time. They don't need to be watched. They don't need to be monitored. They can be trusted 100% because they take ownership. Now, the question is, are you one of these people, first of all? Because if you're not one of them, you won't be able to attract them. And secondly, how many of them do you have around you? If you have anybody around you, how many of them fit this description? And if you plan on having people around you, how much work are you willing to do to find people like this? And are you willing to remain an A player yourself so you can keep people like this? Because A player is around somebody who's not an A player also. They're eventually going to get wandering eyes. They're going to go find somebody who is. So are you one of these people? Because you can't keep them if you ain't one of them. Let's recap today's masterclass, which is why you need a team of A players in your organization. Again, masterclass number 870. I talked about level 10 people. Today is about why you need to fill your team with A players. And if you are a prospective member, why you need to become an A player in order to get chosen. The challenge with finding A players is that there are fewer of them and they have options. They don't have to choose you. Mediocre people don't have options. They take whatever they can get. And mediocre leaders choose mediocre people because they're easy to find. A players are much harder to find and much harder to keep. But if you're willing to do the work, I'm going to tell you how to find them. Number one, A-level players learn quickly. Episode 601 told you the slow learners get left to die. You don't have to teach everyone everything when you're dealing with an A player. In episode number 1100 and 1101, I told you about delegating and codifying. You want people who just get it without too much explanation. People who are fast learners. Fast learners help you get more things done in a day than you can get done. One fast learner will help you get more things done than 10 mediocre people. A players can read your mind and see things that you don't even have to say. This is how NFL wide receivers and quarterbacks form these partnerships where they just know with eye contact exactly what to do without saying anything because they're in a spirit of perfect harmony because that's how A players think. They think on the same wavelength. Point number two, A players take ownership of things and they get things done. Everything they touch, they take responsibility for and they see them through to completion. A players treat their jobs as if they own the whole company, and the more of them you have, the better your business will run. What you don't want is a whole bunch of people holding leases, people who are only there for the check. They run out as soon as 5 p.m. hits because that's time that they're not being paid for after that. Even if they're good, you don't want them. Actually, the better they are, the more of a cancer they'll become. Point number three, A players bring skills with them to the job. You don't need to train them. You don't need to delegate and codify everything to them. Because that takes time and energy from you to do that. What if you brought in people who already had all the skills you needed and more? A players bring skill to the table. The same way Pau Gasol brought skill to the table for the LA Lakers, and him and Kobe had chemistry immediately. Dennis Rodman brought skill to the table for the Chicago Bulls. Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan respected his contributions immediately because they knew what he could bring to the table. He knew what they did. Everybody fit in perfectly, and they went right into winning championships. The same way that Kobe and Pau Gasol did. That's not a mistake. That's not an accident because they were all A-level players. Point number 4, A players go the extra mile without being told to go the extra mile. This connects to the ownership mentality that they have. They know what needs doing without being told to, and they just do it. They know there's no bonus for it. They may not even be recognized for it, but they do it anyway. Mediocre people would never do this, and that's why they're mediocre. Episode 1178, we talked about first who, then what. The right attitudes first, the skills come second. Number 5, A-level players make your job as the leader easier. Mediocre people require supervision. You got to do all this extra work of watching them, monitoring them, training them, correcting them, making sure they know they're being watched so they don't bullshit on the job. A players never bring these problems. A players take ownership of aspects to the point that you don't even need to pay attention to that aspect because you know the A player is going to handle it. And they know that you know they're going to handle it. And they take ownership over that responsibility. They move quickly. They move efficiently. They get things done. They do things that you didn't even know needed to be done. They let you know after they finished it. And they don't need to be taught. They don't need to be watched. Those are the A-level players. You got to ask yourself, are you one of these? And how many of them do you have in your circle? Work on your game. Dre all day.